Hello and welcome to the fourth video with Broadsword Academy Sacramento. Today we're going to learn about the hanging guard and how to use it. So I want you to start off with doing your basic advanced retreat footwork, do your lunge, stretch, work out your arm with both the shoulder and wrist cut with cuts 1 and 2 only, and then we'll move on to the first demonstration. For our first demonstration, we're going to discuss the hanging guard. So far, we have the outside guard and the inside guard. The hanging guard is our third predominant engaging guard. We're talking about engaging later. But what we're going to do just to get the feeling right, you're going to put your hand above your eye line. So that way you could imagine seeing your opponent underneath your sword or your guard. So we're in this position. Your arm is kind of more or less straight, maybe a slight bend. You don't want it super bent like towards your back, and you don't want it fully extended. That can be a little bit awkward. This is a tiring position to stand in, so try and do something that feels more or less natural. What's important is your sword, your guard is above your eye line, so it can protect your head and whatever. We'll talk about the rest of it later. Now, from this angle, I want you to focus on your tip. Your tip is going to be pointed kind of at their navel to thigh area. Different traditions do different things, but we're going to be pointed generally like this. There are some traditions, especially like Italians, where it's very, very, very straight, and I don't know if it exists, but there's also kind of, imagine this straight down. We're in the middle somewhere. Let's just be nice in the middle. So this is your engaging guard. You're still in second position. You're pointing at your opponent's thigh to navel. This is kind of going across your body diagonally, so that way it's kind of equidistant to protect this side and this side. This is your hanging guard. For our first drill today, we're going to just incorporate the hanging guard into our basic advanced retreat while we change guard positions. So I'm going to go to the back. We're going to start in our hanging guard. So second position, hanging guard, looking at your opponent. You're going to change into an outside guard, step forward, inside guard, step forward, outside guard, step forward, hanging guard, step forward. Repeat that as many times as you would like. You can also add changes from the inside guard to the hanging guard. It's good to practice, but it's also good to just have this cycle of rotating between the three guard positions. And then once you get to the end, we're going to do that same thing on the retreat, moving your hand first if you want. So hang, move into a different position, step back, inside, step back, outside, step back, hang, step back. And then you can also add in doing your change of guard position with the step back at the same time. So step back, step back, step back, step back, and so on. Practice as many times as you would like. We'll move on to drill 2. For drill 2, we're going to learn about the mechanics of how to cut from the hanging guard. So if we're in second position, hanging guard. If you want to deliver a cut 1, it's from the wrist. You're kind of already done this before, but we're working on a slightly different principle. You're going to lower your tip into circle, bring it around, so that way your tip is at that 1 to 2 o'clock, and cut through, just as before. For the sake of this, let's cut through and recover to an outside guard. So we're in a hanging guard, cut 1, recover to an outside guard. Then we're going to do it again, go around, cut 1, recover to an outside guard. And for the sake of this, we're not going to recover into the hanging guard yet. We're going to worry about that later. You guys are used to moving, recovering into outside, inside. Let's focus on relearning those skills and making sure that they have a nice foundation. So again, hanging guard, cut 1, rotate through. Hanging guard, cut 1, rotate through. Hanging guard, cut 1, rotate through. And we do the same on the other side, more or less. We're at this hanging guard. We're going to rotate our sword, so it's in that 10, 11 o'clock position. Cut down with cut 2, rotate to the inside guard. And again, it should be really quite powerful. You have this nice wind up, so you can get a lot of power with the strike. It takes a little bit more time versus cutting from like here, but we're going to worry about that later. It is important that you're trading speed and time, so just keep that in mind when you're doing these different cuts. Okay, repeat drill 2, more or less the same, except for we're going to do it on the lunge. What's important to remember is you only initiate the lunge once your blade leaves vertical. You're not going to lunge early, right? So you're in the hanging guard. You're going to prepare into that 1 or 2 o'clock position. Cut forward like before, recover. Hang. And do as many times as you would like. We'll go to the inside, or cut number 2, sorry. We're going to cut, making sure you go to the hanging guard, move into that 11, 10 o'clock position, cut through on the lunge, and back. Then hang. As many times as you would like. Then we'll move on to the next drill. Did you predict what the next drill is going to be? That's right, same exact thing, but on the advanced lunge. Go into your hanging guard, step forward, making sure you're in a nice strong position. Deliver cut 1, recover to the outside. Let's just, for the sake of this, let's recover to the outside, retreat, reset. Advance, cut 1, outside, retreat. Repeat as many times as you would like. Now we're going to go to cut 2. We're going to go to hanging guard, step forward, deliver your cut 2, recover inside, retreat, reset, advance, deliver cut 2, inside, retreat. Repeat as many times as you'd like. Move on to the next stage. I mentioned how we have different engaging guards. These engaging guards for now are the big three, the hanging guard, the outside guard, and the inside guard. An engaging guard is how you engage your opponent. That is how we're going to advance into range to deliver our own attack, or how we're going to wait for them to attack us. That is kind of what an engaging guard is. Now, from an engaging guard, let's say outside, we have the outside parry, which is this position. Some sources don't actually refer to that as the outside parry. This is a shorthand for me to say, from your outside guard or whatever guard position, I want you to change your grip, move the strong of your sword to intercept their cut, and I want you to have your blade more vertical to make it so your defense is more secure. It's much easier to say outside parry. So, with those basic principles, we can turn any guard into a parry. So if we are in the outside guard, and you imagine a cut coming towards my left cheek, I can turn that into what's called prime, or first in French, whatever, by just moving to the inside a little bit, defending my cheek by moving my fort to intercept their cut. I'm going to make my blade not completely vertical like we did on outside and inside. If we're here, it's kind of easy for them to miss a little bit and then cut through. Our wrist is kind of compromised. There's not a lot of structural support when it's in this vertical position. It's real easy to move your blade around. So prime is, it's not as far forward as we were in our hanging guard, but it's not vertical. It's somewhere a little bit lower, so that way we have a little bit more support. So that way when it catches here, it's strong, so that way it won't be pushed away. So you have prime, which covers your inside line, then second, which covers your outside line. This is a little bit awkward when you're in second position, but it really helps when you move back into that slip. It kind of realigns your hips and makes so it's pretty easy to intercept a cut to your right cheek in second. So from hang, you have prime and second. Ideally, both times you're slipping. So again, this is prime, and this is second. Now we can move on to kind of the two other ones we're not going to discuss yet. That exact same action of prime, but lower, so that way you're looking over your wrist, is called inside half hanger. Then outside half hanger is defending your outside line. We're not going to discuss those now. We're going to focus on from hanging guard. We're going to go to prime and second. And then the last one we have to cover is, if you look here, this thing's kind of always protecting your head, but it's not ideal to defend with this portion because you could get it wrong and get cut in the wrist. If there's a very much more vertical cut coming towards the top of your head, even if it's at a slight angle, it's still coming to the top of your head. We have something called St. George. From here, cut's coming to my head. I'm going to bring my sword up, not directly over my head, because that's going to compromise and your wrist is kind of in a weak position. It's going to be in front still, slight bend in the elbow. You don't need it that far out. Slight bends, that way you can absorb impact. And just make sure it's in front. You're going to slip, so that way if the blade misses, it kind of comes down on this line right in front of your chest, versus if your leg is out, it could slip and then take out the top of your thigh. So you're here, and then it's important that you can either have your blade kind of this horizontal, parallel with the ground, or slightly sloping down, but it needs to be above your head. Here's fine, like I said, but if it's slightly sloping down, it kind of helps protect against a cut that might be coming at a weird angle to cut your left cheek. And then also when their blade makes contact, it kind of helps their blade slide down, which can help power your riposte, which we'll discuss later. But that's like the basic three I want you to think about. From hanging guard is prime, second, and St. George, and we'll practice those next. In drill 5, we'll actually practice these different parry positions. So from the guard position of the hanging guard, we're going to imagine a cut coming towards our left cheek. We're going to move slightly, and we're going to defend with prime, reset to second position. Imagine a cut coming towards our right cheek, move to second. Now imagine a cut coming towards your head, St. George, either horizontal or vertical. Practice both. Second position, repeat again. There's an attack coming in towards your left cheek, prime. Attack coming towards your right cheek, second. Attack coming towards your head, St. George. Repeat as many times as you would like. For drill 6, we're going to combine what we did in drill 5 with what we learned in drill 2. So from the hanging guard in second position, we're going to shift into first and prime to parry a cut towards our left cheek. Now, overall, our body is not that dissimilar from a hanging guard in this position. So we can deliver a cut 1 with the exact same mechanic as what we learned in drill 2. Where in this position, we're going to move our sword into that 1 or 2 o'clock, and we're going to cut down. Now with a cut 1. Now remember, there's swords on this side, so we're actually not going to do the roll through in this case. We want to keep our sword between us and the offending sharp piece of metal. So again, we're in hanging guard in second position. We're going to shift into prime with first position, defending against a cut to our left cheek with our strong. Blade slightly downwards, but not vertical and not like this. You're defending against a cut. Then from here, load your cut 1, deliver the cut, and then stay in position to defend yourself against their sword. So at speed, you're 1, 2. Stop. Do protect your wrist. Don't hurt yourself. From that same idea, we're going to go from second position hanging guard. We're going to defend our right cheek in second, and then we're going to load the cut 2 towards their side. So again, hanging guard, second, cut 2. Then from hanging guard, they're going to do a vertical cut. We're going to defend in St. George, and you can practice the cut 2, or from the hanging guard, cut 1. Repeat as many times as you'd like. Just try and mix it up. I would recommend going prime, cut 1, second, cut 2, hanging, cut 2, just because it's faster for me, and then St. George, cut 1. Practice all those different combinations, and then we'll move on. For our third demonstration, let's cover a little bit what happened in that last drill. Now you'll notice that from, let's say we're repairing with prime on our inside line, we're delivering a cut 1. This is counter to what I taught you before. Well, when we were in inside guard, we're just doing that lightning fast repost with a cut 2. So the reason is, from this position, if you imagine you defended against their blade, it's sitting on top of yours. It can be a little awkward to get around to deliver a cut 2 in this case. You'd have to kind of disengage, make sure their blade is staying on the inside of your blade, and then cutting. This is doable. It's awkward. It can feel a little weird, especially if they're putting any sort of pressure down. It does leave you open because they can kind of intercept and disengage and stab you in that time. There's all sorts of things. You can do it, but let's practice something a little bit different. We're going to call this cutting into cover. So you imagine you're here, their blade is on your inside line. When we deliver that cut 1, we could in theory, if their blade was right there, cut with opposition, which we've already learned. But in this case, let's just imagine their blade is floating over here. When we delivered our cut, we're cutting a cut 1 into an inside guard. So we hit them and we ended an inside guard to defend against where their sword is. So from here, their sword's here. We cut around, delivering a cut 1, and then we end in a guard position that protects us against anything they might do from that side. So cutting into cover is literally you're cutting into a position that covers you. So from second, we defended in second. Their blade is over here. We're going to cut number 2 in this case to keep it so that way when we end in an outside guard, and that will be on that side of our body. Now this gets a little bit more complicated, and you have to use a little bit more judgment when they do a vertical cut. If they do a vertical cut and stand there and stay there completely vertical, we could do a cut 1, or we could even from here just do a straight cut 2 with opposition. For the sake of this, practice both. Just imagine, hey, I actually caught him. I can do a cut 2 with opposition, or I can do a cut 1 either with opposition or cutting into cover, depending on how their blade shifts. But what's fun to think about is if we have our tip a little bit lower, their blade will slide down, kind of putting pressure on ours, almost kind of loading it like a spring, which makes for a really rapid release when their blade actually falls off. Like I'm not using any muscle, that's just the blade kind of reacting to it, slides down, and that powers a cut 1. So if they do a cut straight down or a cut 1 or cut 2, if we're in St. George with that slope, hopefully their blade slides down and can power a really fast cut number 1. We can also use that same action to power a really fast cut 2. It's going to be dependent upon where they're open and where their sword ends up. In the case of their sword sliding down, their sword's probably going to end over here. So if you're going to cut into cover, a powerful, really fast cut 1 ending in an inside guard might be your most secure form of defense and offense. But anyway, there's more judgment involved versus if you're just a preem, you're gonna get contact and cut 1, get contact, cut 2, and so on. Practice that, and we're gonna learn a little bit more about that in the next drill. Drill 7 is an exact repeat of drill 6, except for we're going to use these principles that we just learned. If you have the camera or your screen on, you can kind of listen to me talk through this, because I'm going to attack you now. So we're both in a hanging guard position. I'm going to say, I'm going to target your left cheek. That's a cut number 1. That's what it's going to look like if you're in a fight. It's going to look something like that. So what I want you to do is I want you to defend your left cheek with preem. I attacked you. You defended successfully with preem. And you can see how my sword is on this side of your body, your inside line, and my left cheek, your number 1 cut is completely exposed. That's why from preem, you can deliver that lightning fast attack to my cheek before I've recovered. So I am outside, I attack your left cheek, you defend when preem, cut my left cheek. Ready? Good. Good. Wait for me to actually cut. Good. Same exact principle on second. You're going to wait, I'm going to target your right cheek. You're going to be in a hanging guard. You can see how this targeting your right cheek, instinctively, I might not actually do this because your sword is right there. It's very hard for me to get there. But for the sake of the drill, I'm going to target your right cheek with a cut 2. You're going to defend with a slip with second, and then cut me, or my weakness, which is my right cheek now. So I cut you with 2, leaving this completely exposed. You defend in seconde and cut me in the cheek before I can recover. Ready? Good. Good. One more time. Good. Now you can see how this works. You just have to move your sword very little, get that strong defense, and then whack. That's a great way to repost. Now, I'm going to cut straight down. I want you to focus on having your tip slightly lower, so that way my blade slides down, releasing your sword to do a cut 1. In fact, it might be useful for you to practice this, like literally put your hand on your sword and push down, feel that pressure building on your wrist, and then see how it releases, and see how that powers your cut number 1. Ready? I'm going to do a straight vertical cut to your head, defend in St. George, and repost with a 1 or a 2, just using that momentum to power your cut. Good. Good. One more time. Good. Now we'll go on to the next drill. Drill 8 is just like drill 7, except for we're going to pretend I was a little faster on my recovery, and I was actually able to get out of range before, so you couldn't hit me while staying in first position, and you had to lunge to hit me. Otherwise, it's going to be the exact same. So you are going to be in the hanging guard. You're going to defend with the slip to get that preem parry. That exposes me for the cut 1. You're going to bend your leg down to power your lunge. You're going to deliver cut 1, staying in an inside guard because that's where my sword is. And then that will conclude that part. We'll move on to the next, where you're in hanging guard. You're going to defend seconde with the right cheek. You're going to deliver a cut 2 on the lunge, recover into outside. Let's do that again. So you're hanging guard, slip, parry in seconde, deliver a cut 2 after bending your leg, recover in and outside into second position. And then it's the exact same principle, except for you're going to slip with St. George and then deliver a cut 1 or 2 on the lunge. But you're going to do that based on how I attack you. Ready? I'm going to deliver a cut 1 towards your left cheek, defend in preem, counter, as shown on the lunge. Sorry, riposte on the lunge. Once more. Good. Now we're going to do the same action, but I'm going to target your right cheek with a cut 2, defend in seconde, and then riposte correctly on the lunge. Good. 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 One more. Good. Practice that as many times as you want. We'll move on to St. George. So it's going to be a straight vertical cut. Defend, let my blade slide down yours, and power a cut 1 or a cut 2, however you see fit. Good. Okay, we'll move on to the next drill. The final drill is drill 9. It's going to be the exact same thing as drill 8, except for we're going to start and end on the advance and the retreat. So from your perspective, you're going to be in a hanging guard. You're going to advance. That's going to trigger me to try and attack you in the time of your feet. And I'm going to be late. Your feet have been planted, so you're going to be in a stable guard position anyway. I'm going to target your left cheek. You defend in preem, deliver your appropriate riposte on the lunge. And then once you finish that lunge, you delivered your riposte, recover into second, and then retreat. That's all. That's going to be the only difference. You're advancing, lunging with the riposte, recover to second, retreat, so you're in the starting position. We're going to do that on preem, seconde, and then hanging guard. You ready? So it's going to be hard for me to command this without you actually being here in person, but I'm going to try. Advance, I attacked you, riposte, then retreat. Advance, riposte, retreat. Advance, riposte, retreat. Good. Now we'll do the other side. I'm going to target your right cheek. You're defending in seconde. Advance, riposte, retreat. Advance, riposte, retreat. Advance, riposte, retreat. Good. Now we'll do a straight vertical cut to your head. Respond with the cut 1 or cut 2, your choice, and then retreat. Advance, riposte, retreat. Advance, riposte, retreat. Advance, riposte, retreat. Good. Repeat as many times as you would like, and that'll conclude this portion. We have a little comment next, and then we'll be done. That concludes Lesson 4 for Broadsword Academy Sacramento. I hope you learned a little bit about the fun new things you can do just by having your sword oriented in a different way. There's all sorts of new things to do expanding on that, but I hope one thing you may have noticed is we didn't discuss after attacking, when you were the first person to attack, we didn't recover into that hanging guard. This can be a little awkward to do the cut and then recover into a hanging guard, and I really want you to focus on cutting into recovering to that outside or inside with the roll through. This is a fundamental part of our art, and practicing that really, really hard early on is going to help a lot more than getting used to doing these cuts and then stopping in a hanging guard. So we're not focusing on that right now, but you need to know, hopefully, the hanging guard is a great defensive position. It's centrally located in the body, and it's really quick to defend almost every attack that could come in. So if you did an attack and you weren't exactly sure where your opponent's going to repost, recovering into this hanging guard is a fantastic idea. We're going to worry about that later. For now, learn the fundamentals of from your attack, recover to that outside or that inside guard, depending upon how your attack was actually delivered and where their sword is. We're going to worry about recovering to the hanging guard and the different pros and cons of that in a future video. With that being said, thanks for joining me. I look forward to seeing you soon.